Welcome back. Well, if you've ever wondered about the afterlife, the spirit world, and what it's like to have a near-death experience, our next guest is the definitive authority on the matter. Welcome to the show, Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer. Mark, you're no stranger to our show. Welcome back.
Thanks, Alex. It's always great being back in Tucson, especially on the Morning Blend.
Definitely. It's such a pleasure to have you on. You're always well received here in town. And we want to know a little bit about you first, about your gift and when you discovered it.
This runs in my family. Both my parents had these abilities, and I've tracked it on both my mother's and father's side of the family back into the 1890s. So when I was about 3 to 4 years old, I started seeing spirits. And I remember Mom was all excited and Dad was like, oh no, only because of the stigma associated with it. And he was just afraid that I'd be treated badly as a child. So we kept it at home.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, you're going to be doing an event tonight. You're going to be covering all sorts of topics. One of them is near-death experiences. So for folks who may not know, how would you define specifically what a near-death experience is?
A near-death experience is when somebody clinically dies. So they flatline, brainwave function stop, the heart stops, and then what happens is their consciousness, their soul separates from the body and is able to perceive them laying there, and then there's a transition, this feeling of floating and then going in through a tunnel into the light and encountering deceased loved ones. And when they get to a farther point in the near-death experience, they encounter a love and an intelligence which can only be defined as God.
Wow. Well, I mean, in your line of work, I mean, it's no wonder you know so much about it, but you've actually also been through one yourself.
When I was about 3, I went into convulsions and stopped breathing. And I remember my mother, she was by herself and she ran out in front of our house and was screaming, oh my God, my baby's dying. And the next thing I know, I was about 30, 40 feet up looking down on all of this. And what happened was an off-duty fireman happened to be walking down the street and he ran over and started pounding on my chest. And then I went into the light and I encountered these incredible beings that I can only describe as angels. And then the next thing I know, I heard, we got a pulse, and I was in an ambulance with a respirator over my mouth.
Well, I'm glad that they saved you. I'm glad that you're here talking to us today and that you were able to bring back what you found. Now, is this a recent phenomenon, these near-death experiences, or has it been really reported through history?
Since ancient times, near-death experiences have been recorded. In fact, in his book, The Republic, Plato talks about the soul of leaving his body. The Apostle Paul chronicles someone caught up in the third heaven, which is believed to be a near-death experience. Mozart, Queen Victoria, Winston Churchill, President Abraham Lincoln. In fact, even George Lucas has been reported to have had a near-death experience. And what's fascinating about George Lucas, Alex, is that his near-death experience has been the genesis, if you will, for concepts like the Jedi Knights, the Force, the energy that binds all of us.
Wow, fascinating stuff. I mean, it obviously influenced him very heavily, the fact that he went through that. And, you know, as far as different types of near-death experiences, or potentially different types, when somebody's, say, having a surgery, they're under anesthesia, is it going to be different while they're under the influence of that than it would be otherwise?
Not at all. That's one of the things that the scientists who study near-death experiences have noticed, that the influence of anesthesia, drugs, drowning, any type of death, it doesn't matter. The experience is very, very similar, and they've noted 10 similarities between them. And what's also interesting is age, race, belief system, creed. Atheists have them as much as people of faith. And so there's a database called the NDERF, the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, and it compiles statistics from all over the world. And recently, both Iran and China signed up for this, which is fascinating because Iran's a very conservative Muslim country. China is, for the most part, an atheist country, yet their doctors are reporting the same findings as in Europe, South America, Africa, Australia, and the United States.
Wow. And, you know, people go through this, and no doubt it changes them. It does something to them. How would you say it really alters their life when they go through this?
A near-death experience alters somebody because it removes their fear of death. It also instills in fact, I just was privileged to meet Nancy Evans Bush from the International Association of Near-Death Studies, and she said that near-death experience people don't think there's a God, they know there's a God. Wow. So even atheists come out of it believing in God. Also, belief in reincarnation and psychic ability seems to be enhanced, the ability to perceive spirits. So what it does is it elevates a person's vibration, if you will, makes them more spiritual.
Well, it's a felt experience, certainly, and
Yes.
something else that people really have to experience is your event tonight, because you're going to not only talk about this, but what else can people really expect when they go out to see you?
Tonight at the Unity of Tucson, I will be talking about near-death experiences and coping with the loss of a loved one, and then I'll be using my ability to communicate with spirits to connect random audience members with loved ones on the other side.
Wow, well, if I had to make a reading with my psychic ability, people are going to have a really great time tonight. They really have to come out and see you. And Mark Anthony, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. Always great being on the show.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. Now, guys, Mark will be at Unity of Tucson at 3617 North Camino Blanco starting tonight at 7 p.m. for an evening of healing and spirit communication. For tickets, please call 577-3300 and be sure to visit Mark's website at evidenceofeternity.com.